So, hello and welcome to the channel. Today, as you can see, I have a guest. This is Quaver from the channel Time, and we are going to have a marvelous conversation today. Quaver, please introduce yourself to the people who might not know you.
Yes, thank you so much, Aster. So yes, I'm Quaver. I am the creator of Time, and oh my goodness, I mean, I don't what just a little bit about me. I live in Europe, in Czech Republic, and yeah, I've been living here for some time now, and just connecting to myself and my practice, even when I'm not on my land or with people or connected to people that would understand my practice. So it's quite interesting.
Super relatable, by the way.
Yeah.
So, and I ended up adding one question, talking exactly about that, the experience of practicing magic in a different country, because it is something that the both of us go through. So how is it like for you being in the Czech Republic with your heritage?
Yes. So I practice Hoodoo, and I know we'll talk more about what Hoodoo is and everything like that, but there is a very nature-based aspect of Hoodoo, and a part of my process of practicing it, even when I'm here or I'm traveling wherever, is the realization that Hoodoo for me is not something that is outside myself. It is something that is me. So it goes wherever I go, right?
Yeah.
And in regards to connecting to the land, and it's, is one trying your best to connect to the people, which can be a challenge.
Yes, totally.
When you're a foreigner, it's completely normal and it's common, sure. But it's also taking the time to learn and study as much as you can. But what's beautiful about Hoodoo that brings me so much pride is that there was a point where I was talking to my grandmother, talking to my mom, and they're giving me all these herbs that my great-grandmother used and all these things. And I felt so isolated because I was like, well, I guess I can't practice Hoodoo because I don't have those herbs. And speaking with my ancestors about it and crying about it, it was a kind of revelation of, we understand what you're going through,
They did the same thing.
They had to do the same exact thing. So they said, and that's when that revelation came, that was just like, oh no, Hoodoo is not something outside of me. It's in me. It is me. It's my blood. It's who I am. So Hoodoo allows me to have access to understand the nature around me in my own way, of course, but also a way to connect to it, a way to, by learning the history of the land, absolutely, but also realizing that I can access it because of Hoodoo. I can access its magic because of Hoodoo. So that is how I'm, it's that realization. So it doesn't matter where I walk. I know that wherever I go, I can see an herb, listen to my spirits, and they say, ooh, you know what? That will go great with, you're right. Guess what? I'm able to utilize it, and it is still Hoodoo, so
yes, adaptation is a big part of being somewhere else and keeping a practice alive. We have still, like, for example, thyme. That's not hard to find. It doesn't matter where you are, but there are some specific plants that I cannot find over here, and we just have to change and adapt and see what's available.
Yes, it's so funny. I was talking to my mom I was like, hey mommy, what was that herb? I was really sick one day and someone went and got some herb and made a tea or whatever, and I felt better the next day. And she was like, oh yeah, that's bush. I was like, yeah, I know it's bush, but what is the bush called? She was like, it's bush. And I was like,
what do you mean?
Like, adios mios, like, listen. Never mind. I was like, so it just is. So moments like that, just calling it bush, that doesn't help me.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes we can find seeds or buds of certain plants on the internet. And one of my biggest finds was rue that I found a package of seeds in Spain. Over here in France, I couldn't find it anywhere, but I found seeds in Spain. I have them planted in 2 little pots, and it is such an achievement.
And you just feel proud. You're like, I have something.
Oh my God, I can't believe I found you.
Yes, I love that. Now I'm gonna. Okay, later on you might give me your contacts.
Yeah. It was just some random store, but I
Yes.
still have some seeds. Maybe I could send them over to you.
Yes, listen. Oh, I love that you found rue. It is actually, rue is also very common in hoodoo as well. So the fact that you use rue and it's also common in hoodoo, I just love the connection.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities between the things that I practice, Brazilian folk magic and hoodoo. It's the same roots. We just grew a little bit differently because of the locations.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, it is the same soul, let's say.
Yes.
Now, speaking of hoodoo, how would you define hoodoo for the people who maybe don't know it?
Yes. So, oh boy. Yeah. So hoodoo is, if you were to try to get some kind of definition, there's people that will want to categorize it in a certain way because of, history and things like this, or they want to try to invalidate it. Is that the right word? Invalidate it?
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. Because of some conception or something like this. The best definition that I found that I resonated with, like when I heard it, I was like, oh yes, thank you, that makes sense, because getting this question sometimes is a little daunting. It was from the Chesapeake Conjure Society in the US, and they described hoodoo as an ethno-religion of African Americans, right? So basically an ethno-religion meaning like there is a shared culture, a shared heritage, or a lineage that connects a people together, and because of that, it is a practice, it's a religion. Now with hoodoo, what's interesting about it is that some people will say that hoodoo is not a religion. It is a spiritual practice, right? And I say yes and no, right? Because there's such a cultural connection in hoodoo. It's like so you have the cultural practice, right? This is the people, for example, they practice hoodoo without even realizing they practice hoodoo. It's because, why do you do that? Oh, because my grandmother did it.
It's just the things that we do, kind of thing.
You have part of the culture to really know about it, because it just is, Do these people practice hoodoo? Yes. But is it their religion? Is it how they see God? Is it how they define themselves? No. And that's okay. That's okay because it's still a part of the culture. It's a part of the heritage. So it just is. But for many, hoodoo is a religion because it is how they define themselves. It's how they understand the world. It's how they understand their power. And so, and that's how they just navigate it, is as a religion. And so yeah, and I know it's calling something a religion can be layered, but if you were to ask me, I feel that there is some kind of political agenda or political intention of not calling certain practices a religion. And those political agendas, those political intentions have nothing to do with me. So if that's how I navigate the world, if that's how I see the divine, God, whatever you want to call them, if that's how I seek my peace and my solace and how I spiritually grow, then yes, that is my religion, So yeah. But overall, hoodoo is a medicine. It's a psychology. It provides a way to heal, to protect, to liberate, the American African. And so it's like that. It's basically the connection to our African past, that is not very removed. If you were to get down to like the nitty gritty of it, you're like, I see a connection here. What's going on? And so there is like this memory link that is just there, and it just is. So yeah, that's Hoodoo.
And is it something that somebody has to be born into, or any person can decide, okay, now I want to learn and practice Hoodoo? Is it open for any person to join? How does that work?
Yeah, so the question of whether it's closed or open, especially now that people are wanting to discover these practices, not just Hoodoo, any practice, the question of, is it closed or open? I would say that Hoodoo is protected because of its history. It's been on the hush hush, which is why it's so many questions of, Hoodoo. Do you mean voodoo? No, I mean Hoodoo.
Oh, yes.
So I would say it's protected. So are there initiations that can be done? Absolutely. There are initiations. Is it something that is needed? No. But because Hoodoo has such a cultural, and you have to understand the culture to sort of understand where Hoodoo is coming from, with many of trying to understand it and trying to I suppose, to navigate it. It's hard to explain, but this is why my answer to that, if it's open or closed, I would say it's protected.
I totally understand. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've read in a book, actually, I think it's the Yoruba Religious Concepts. It's a book that you can find on Amazon. There was a little passage in which the author said that in America, it was very hard for the Black people to keep their beliefs, because the English who did the colonization, they were Protestants, which meant that there was only one God, and then it was super hard to keep like Orishas and so many multiple spiritual beliefs undercover. Yes. In Brazil, however, we were colonized by Portugal, and they were Catholic. So it was much easier to hide the deities and everything behind the saints.
Yes.
So it passed throughout time a little bit easier, and it was a little bit more tolerated to an extent.
Yes.
So I understand the protection.
Yes. No, it is very protected. But what's very interesting is that with Hoodoo, well, today obviously we're talking about Hoodoo, but with the understanding of even the African traditional religions, there is a belief in one God. There is just please. So if the colonizers came and said, there's only one God, it's like, duh. Of course there are. It's just God has helpers. You already want to call it
exactly
that,
Exactly.
So in Hoodoo, yes, there is a concept of the divine, of God, of a single God. But just like you said, absolutely, with its evolution and whatnot, because a lot of Protestants, Baptists, the syncretism, there's a less extent of syncretism in Hoodoo. Like there are a few, like for example, you have like Mother Moses, that's Harriet Tubman, who is deified in a way, an ancestor able to be deified. And that's Mother Moses. And that's something that was like kind of, was able to sync. But in general, I completely agree that synchronism, though it is possible, absolutely, is it possible? If you are in a household right now and you are feeling called to, practice Hoodoo, and your family's Catholic and you're like, I don't know.
Some saints.
Exactly. There's some saints. It is completely possible. One thing that I love about Hoodoo is that it's a living religion, meaning it breathes, it moves, it changes. But the base, if you understand the culture, you understand the history, if you understand the nuances of the African diasporic experience at the very base, you can find that nothing has changed. It's just the covering had to change. change, you know? So that's at least my little 2 cents when it comes to like, is it possible? And like in my household, yes, it is. You are good. You can do it. It's all good.
Yeah. So in your case, hoodoo was like a choice, or was it passed down to you by your family? And like, of all practices available, religious practices, spiritual practices, why and how did you choose hoodoo to be your spirituality, your spiritual path? Because many Black people, they just become Christians, you know? So how did you choose to take hoodoo and call it your own?
Yeah, okay, so I was actually raised in both a Catholic household, and I was raised in a non-denominational church as well, because when my mom would go to work, I would be with my grandmother, and she is non-denominational, and so I grew up with both. But with hoodoo not being synchronized and not having direct saints and things like this, when I say that hoodoo went underground, I mean it went underground. Meaning I didn't even know, for example, people in the Black church, they wouldn't even know what it's called that they're doing. They just know that they're doing something. They're doing a little something, something. Oh, what do you do? I'm doing a little something, something.
I'm just doing this thing here.
Yeah. Like,
don't ask me questions.
Don't ask questions. I'm doing a little something, something. It became so hush hush, so down low, right? And so when I left the US in my isolation, also just to travel the world, because I've always wanted to travel the world and stuff like this. So I've always had it in me, and I've always seen it around me, right? But I didn't know I was seeing it. That's the funny thing about it. It's so hush hush. I didn't even know I was seeing it, right? So I started doing things naturally on my own, okay? And one day I decided, you know what? I need to tell my mom. I don't know why, but I need to tell this very Catholic woman what I'm doing. Love you, Mom, if you're watching.
It's also relatable.
Yeah. And so one day I just took up the courage and I said, Mommy, okay, 1 second. And before this, I was able to connect with some elders and things like this that finally gave me the word, like, oh, this is hoodoo. You are African American. You are an American African. So you are practicing hoodoo. And I said, whoosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know there was a word for it, because once again, it was so hush hush. Anyway, so fast forward. Decide I need to tell my mom. There's an ocean between us, so I think it's safe. She can't come and drag me by my ear or something, you know?
She's not gonna be able to do much.
I can't do much. But what's funny, this is what actually happened. So I tell my mom, I said, Mommy, so I venerate my ancestors, and, you know, I connect with spirits and XYZ. Now we're on FaceTime. She's listening. And she was like, oh, okay. And I was like, okay. And she's like, yeah, that's what your great grandmother did. Excuse me?
Oh my God.
Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to repeat that one more time. I'm so sorry. Excuse me? She's like, she's like, oh yeah, that's nothing different. So I showed her my altar and everything, and she's like, wow, that looks just like your great grandmother's.
Wow.
I was like,
that is so amazing, right? How it simply is in us. We just do it naturally. And wow.
Exactly. And then my mom started telling me stories. She's like, you know, so she calls me her hippie child. She has 6 kids. There's 6 of us in total. She calls me her hippie child. I'm the oldest. And she's like, you know, you always were my hippie child. I remember when you were a baby, you just be talking and talking. I knew you were talking to angels or something, but maybe you were talking to spirits.
Yeah.
Why? Listen, to my bone, everything shook inside of me. But my mom, being the Catholic woman that she is, she only had one question. She's like, so are you a good one or a bad one? Oh, that's your question. Now, personally, I don't subscribe to good, bad, but putting myself in her shoes, I understood the question she was asking, right?
Yeah.
It's clear the question she was asking. And so I said, I'm good. And she's like, okay, well then, you know what? I might have to ask you for a reading one of these days. Sure, absolutely.
Wonderful.
Listen, the day I gave my grandmother a reading was the day I was
Oh, wow.
shivers. I was like, I'm doing this for my grandmother.
My God.
I was like, wow. So it did skip a few generations. But my mom, once again, I saw my mom do certain things as a kid. Once again, the whole cultural aspect of hoodoo being just a part of the Black culture, and it's difficult to separate. So my mom doing things that why do you do that? Oh, because I saw it growing up. It just is what we do. Okay. But even seeing my mom do certain things and stuff. And so she was like, oh, I've had a dream, and this is what the dream means. That is such a hoodoo thing, of interpreting dreams and divining and all of this stuff. And so yeah, it's just very interesting how my connection to it, for me, I would say it's very much in my blood. It's very much a lineage thing. Hoodoo for me, as I said earlier, it's a way for me to understand myself, my power. It's how I understand the world through the stories that were passed down. I mean, it's such an oral tradition as well, so the stories that I've had to learn, because, when it skips a few generations, there is a learning that has to be done.
There's a learning curve.
There's definitely a learning curve. So I didn't know my great grandmother before she passed. And this is the woman that my mom was like, oh, that's just like your great grandmother. So I didn't know her, but I was quite young. So I have vague memories of like tall candles that I wasn't allowed to touch, certain tables that I wasn't allowed to go near, certain periods of time where she would be like, this is my quiet time. And I had to be very quiet because Wella, we call her Wella. Wella is, doing something. Doing something. But I was playing with my dolls. I don't know. I didn't know what was happening. And so yeah, it is how I see. Now, is it what my great grandmother would have called herself doing? No. So here's it's very interesting because my great grandmother was a Catholic. And so because of the demonization of African practices, till this day, you will get some people who, and it's so sad, it makes me so sad, but they're clearly doing something that is non-Christian, let's just say, but because
they will never say that they are not Christian.
Yes, exactly, which is completely okay. But if you say, oh, you're doing this, like, oh, I know what this is called. This is called this. Because of the demonization, because of the fear, it's like, oh, no. But it's like, but it's okay. You can call it for what it is. It's an African practice, an African derived practice, and it's okay if that's not what you want to call it. If there's still that fear, and it's your own journey, your own process, and we need to hold space for people that are still unraveling that decolonization and stuff. You have to hold space. But I wonder, with my great grandmother, would she have called it hoodoo? Maybe she wouldn't have. Maybe she would have called it, I'm doing a little
probably
something.
Not. Yeah, probably not.
Like, maybe I'm doing a little something. That's what it's called. Something. All right. Cool,
Yeah, but I think it is beautiful how it just even if it has skipped a generation or two, it is so beautiful that we get to keep it alive. Yeah, it is so powerful.
Yes, absolutely. I think it helps with the memory as well. I won't lie, doing ancestor reverence, I see the change in my life, but I also see the change in my family as well. I see it. At least for me, I see it. And so I think it's beautiful. I think hoodoo is beautiful. It's beautiful that along my journey, along my journey, I finally found, the name. And I can actually, because a name is powerful. A name is so powerful. When you could put a name to something, or sometimes it's not even a name. Sometimes it's just a confidence.
Yes, especially considering the history that this practice has. It had to be hidden underground for such a long time. So it is very impactful that now there is a name for it, and we're gonna call it by the name it is supposed to be called. So
exactly. Yes, 100%. But then, sorry.
I forgot what I was going to say.
We're in it. We were so in it. It's all good. It's all good.
I remembered. You mentioned something about isolation. So you moving to the Czech Republic had an influence in your spirituality, and like that moment was when you were more in touch with it than ever before, because that's what happened with me as well.
Yes. I think my isolation has been a blessing. I think being separated from everything that I know, separated from my own culture, separated from my own people, on a personal level, it made me just hear myself a lot louder. I had to rely on my intuition in a way that I never really thought about. I had to rely on my intuition, and I had to learn to trust myself, and being separated, being isolated as well from the culture. There was a point where I couldn't find what I love about African practices as a whole. There is such a community. It is deeply community. So being isolated is not a thing. It's not a thing. You have community, you have something to like practice together, dance, music, eat food together, tell stories together. It's so beautiful and powerful.
It's warm and welcoming.
And then now you're isolated, and now you're disconnected from all of this. You don't have that. And so there was a point where I wanted to connect to people just like myself, and I couldn't find them. It was complete isolation, complete feeling very, very much alone.
I just have to mention something that maybe the viewer maybe they don't understand what you mean with isolation, because somebody who has never lived in another country, they will not get that. Like, what we are not talking about COVID over here and social distancing. It's not about that. It is like the state of solitude that immigration puts you into, because all of a sudden you are completely alone in a different place where you don't know that many people. It's not your culture. It's not your language, and you find yourself completely isolated. I have been through the same thing over here in France. I know how it feels, and I agree with you. It was kind of a blessing in disguise, because it put me closer to my spirituality like I had never been before.
100%. And the path that it helped me down in being able to hear my spirits loud, so loud, because I only had my intuition. I had to surrender and say, okay, I am alone. Yes, I can call my grandmother and my mom and grandfather, and I can hear stories and things like this. Absolutely. But more or less in my practice, I am alone. This is something that is my path, Anyway, and so, so it was a blessing in disguise. It is a blessing in disguise. And it wasn't until I fully got comfortable in my own voice, in my own intuition, in my practice, is when doors started opening and I started meeting other people slowly but surely. I started meeting the right people, that was like, oh, okay, can you describe what you're doing? Oh, this is what I'm doing. Okay, you're from America? Yeah. You have African ancestry?
No, I don't. No.
Yeah. She's like, oh, that's called hoodoo. She's like, oh, and then next thing I know, things start unfolding, and then the learning of African practices and seeing how there's at its base, the similarities, it just a huge sense of self, of in my power and the resistance. You can't tell me nothing. What can I not handle? Oh, I'm good. Like, you can't. Yeah. So blessing and difficult. I'm not gonna take away from its difficulty, because there were many nights of crying, many nights of wondering, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? It would be so much easier. I can make friends so much faster if I just go to that Christian church that I know that the other African people are there, and they would, I can easily make friends with them. I can make my life so easy. And then something in my spirit is like rattles. It just won't. It's like, no. Stay on your path. It's hard, it hurts, but we are with you. Feel us. Yeah. And trust me, they would make themselves known from waking up and seeing things. I'm like, listen, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Or like touching. I'm like, okay, the touching, the seeing, like, all right. I realize I'm not alone. I get it. But maybe not 2:00 in the morning, waking me up and seeing things. I'm all right.
And how does your practice look like on a regular basis, day to day? What do you do? It is only ancestors, or there's also deities? What do you usually do in your practice?
Okay, well, my brain is wanting to break up your question for a second, if you don't mind. On the daily, this is like Quaver just waking up out of bed. Okay. For me, prayer, gratitude, prayer is big in hoodoo. There are people that have a power of a tongue like no other. So prayer is a big part of my just everyday. I would also say that on the daily as well, I feel like I'm constantly talking to my ancestors, about something. It could be something so simple. It could be I'm watching like just Game of Thrones, and I'm like, did y'all see that? Do you see what she did behind his back? Like, listen, there's no one in my flat but me. Okay. And it would just be random, just burst of just conversation. It would be also something as simple as when I find coins, I take it as a sign. Oh, okay, this isn't for me. This is for my ancestors. And so giving them the money, that I find. If I see a thing of flowers, I'm like, oh, wow. And I think they would love this. It's a relationship. So I come home. Oh, yes. So I come home, and it's not like I come home, to myself. I'm coming home to them. And I'm telling them about my day, telling them what pissed me off that day or something like this, or going off about some TV show that I can't wait for us to watch together, So it is a relationship. So on the daily. Totally, yeah. Yeah. So on the daily, that is what it is. Also for me, so hoodoo, how do I even say this? Hoodoo looks at the natural and the unnatural world. I think that's how you would say it. So for example, if I'm cooking, something as simple as cooking, for me, it's a spiritual experience, you know? If I'm walking through a doorway, I'm not just walking in my spirit. I know I'm not just walking through a doorway, right? So it's a liminal space. Yeah, right. Exactly. You get it. So for me, hoodoo is not something that I have to like put on and now I'm like, oh, now I'm practicing hoodoo. It's literally just my day. It's just my day. If I see certain birds talk to you. Birds talk to you. The wind talks to you. If you just take the time to just listen, tap in and listen, they are talking to you. And so for me, it could be as simple. I'm sitting on the bench and then I see like a magpie just by themselves. And at least to my understanding, I think magpies, you always see them in twos. You always see them together. And I see one by itself and I'm like, you want to say something to me? it's like it just is. Like, where's your friend? How come you're by yourself? What's going on? Why'd you come to me? Anyway, so I feel like on the daily, it's just, like I say, it's how I see the world, you know, it's how the world moves, and it's beautiful. It's so alive, you know, even something that like, what do they call, I don't know, an inanimate object, you know, it's not living. That's not, what do you mean it's not living? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand what's not living. I don't get it. But I would say I do have a specific day where I do sit with my ancestors. For me, that's Thursdays, just because I was born on a Thursday. So it's not kind of like, yeah. So it wasn't like any kind of like rocket science. It was like, oh, well, I was born on a Thursday, so I suppose that's the day we should get together once a week and just like chill out and whatnot, you know? So so definitely being with my ancestors, dedicating that time, saying certain prayers to them, that is really important. Also, other than my ancestors, I would say that working with my protectors, my deities that I've gained a relationship with, I would say for me, that would definitely be the Crossroad Man. Like me and him, there's something, my heart, even just, I've done so many videos on the Crossroad Man and then finding like the African link, you know, to it, because unfortunately, the one thing about Hoodoo when it comes to deities and spirits and things like this is that the names of a lot of these deities were lost, right?
Yes.
So the Crossroad Man, like, oh, who's the Crossroad Man? Like, what's their name?
I don't know.
Why you ask me that question? What do you mean? It always has been, like, at least in my, you know, the Crossroad Man, you know? But I feel like for me at least, practicing Hoodoo, I cannot ignore, and I don't want to ignore, its African roots, because so much of the pieces of the puzzle that I felt, at least on my journey, were lost. I found myself sort of putting them together, you know, and it just there's such a wholeness. I don't know how to describe it. There's such a wholeness that you find, that you feel, and it's like, finally, you know? And so, that is one spirit deity that I am very, very close to. My protectors, my warriors, a dubious bunch, but protected. I say dubious because like some of them are just like, interesting, your method, but you do you. If you protected me, go ahead. I'm gonna give you the tools necessary to do such a thing, but dubious that you want. And machete, not sure why you want that, but I will try my best to procure it. I will. Why do you need a machete to protect me? But all right, if that's what you need, I'm gonna find.
I'm gonna get one. Okay.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So I think that is connecting with them, my ancestors, but also sitting down and just connecting with the divine, you know. Everything for me makes up the divine. I see you and I'm like, that's the divine. Like look at her, like, you know, they're talking to me, like we're just talking to each other, right? It's just everything for me. And sitting down, talking with the divine, talking with God, I think that is a very Hoodoo thing, because during our ancestors that had to go through hard, you know, these enslaved times, even after when you know, slavery was banned and whatnot, talking to God was enough to get things moving. Sometimes you just needed a candle, glass of water, and a talk with God. That will move something. Oh yes, you know. Yeah. Oh God, I love Hoodoo. You have no. I don't talk too much about it, but I love Hoodoo so much.
Yeah, I can totally see it. Yeah, very good to have that space, right, to express yourself. Yeah. So now, continuing to the next question.
Yes.
We are almost in the end, as a matter of fact. So, do you have any advice for people who are interested in practicing Hoodoo? How could they approach this practice respectfully without crossing any line, let's say?
Right. Well, okay. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good question. I like that. Well, okay. So first, I want to first speak to those that have African heritage, that are American or in the Americas, that are African, and you identify as such, whatnot. I want to make that, talk to your elders. Talk to your elders.
Yeah.
They won't be around forever, and I'm not trying to be morbid about it. It's just
life.
Just yeah, it's just
life.
It's just life. It's just a fact. But definitely talk to your elders. They have a host of stories, even in their tall tales. Like, there's no way that could have happened. Still, write it down. Just remember it, because even in the tallest tale that your grandfather, so for example, my grandfather, so my family in the South, they're from Mississippi, and my grandfather, he loves to tell the story of how we got from Mississippi to Florida. And he loves talking about it. He's like, our ancestor, he sold everything he had and he bought a donkey and he rode into Florida on a donkey.
But that's an adventure. Wow.
What an adventure, from Mississippi to Florida, rode in on a donkey.
That was a very brave man to sell out and just to get a donkey. And
it's like, he gained his freedom and he was out. Moved down to Florida. Anyway, so these tall tales and stuff, but then you and we're going on to like the next, and this is for other people as well, that are interested in hoodoo and stuff. But you have, in my opinion, you have to learn the history. You have to learn the history, not only of African Americans, but of Africa, because to say that the Africans in America, their history started in the Americas. Now, that's not everyone's story. There are definitely those that are indigenous to the Americas, absolutely. But I'm talking about the Africans that were forced. Their history didn't start in the Americas. So
yeah, absolutely.
And in my opinion, until you can respect the motherland, if you can, respect the traditions and the religions of the continent, I don't know if you can respect and understand mine. If I say spirit possession, are you going to get scared? I hope not. I hope not, because that is one of the connections of many of the African, diasporic practices and the traditional African, religions. If I say, music and dance is something that I don't care. I can be in Brazil. I can be in Puerto Rico. I can be in Cuba. I can be in the South. I can be and we will connect over music and dance. You could go to anywhere. Music and dance is so...
It is part of the practices, definitely.
It's part of the practice. So learn the history of the Africans in the Americas. Learn the history of Africa. Learn, definitely the music and the dance. Read Black literature by, and they're written by Black people.
And not like white people talking about African history. Read Black authors. It totally makes a difference.
Exactly. And there's so many films and just literature. Go out into nature, right? Yeah. Go out into nature. There is, as I said earlier, there's nature and hoodoo. Well, it's not even just hoodoo. I think any African practice and hoodoo, they just go hand in hand. So go out in nature, observe it, learn it, protect it, and also I would say what has been beneficial to me that I've been loving is reading these tales. Reading the tales, some of them are quite harrowing and difficult to read. I'm not gonna lie. On my channel, I do read, I do love sharing the tales, in the hopes that it will unlock and hit the person in the way that is meant to hit them. So that way on their journey, they can find what they're needing to find, you know?
Yeah.
And because that's a way of teaching. I remember when I was younger, my mom would be like, you know, sit in the kitchen and watch me cook. Why? I don't want to watch. What do I sit here and watch you cook? But sitting and watching is so watching, listening. It's a part
there's a whole process going on that we get to learn just by watching.
Yes. And like I said, Hoodoo is a living religion. So in my opinion, that means it breathes. It is active. It's not something that you sit down and you flip a page and it's like, oh, I guess I know everything and it's, you know, I'm good. You know probably 5%. Now it's time for you to live it. Be it, breathe it, figure it out. Go and see if you can talk to some birds. They'll probably run away from you and like ignore you at first, but that's okay. That's okay. Listen to the wind, watch the clouds. You know, there's something that is very active with Hoodoo. And I would say even in like African derived practices and religions, it's not passive. It's not passive.
No, not at all. No.
Yeah. So if you want to engage in it, engage. And with respect, one second.
Take your time.
With history, a lot of things have been taken from African Americans and credit has not been given due. If you somehow get the privilege, because it's something you have to earn. Okay, if you get the privilege of having that door open for you, give credit where credit is due. It doesn't take away from you.
Yes.
It doesn't take away from your power. It doesn't take away. If you think about all the things that were, if you learn the history and you feel it and you think of all the things that were taken away, why would you want to do it again and repeat that history, you know? So if you do get that access, really cherish it and be a protector of it. Protect it. And there's a difference between like the marketeered hoodoo, the commercialized hoodoo, and like the hoodoo religion and culture. So don't try to like, you know, sell back the African spirit. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because there's already been enough of that. So give credit, be just respectful and be a protector, you know? So there's a lot to, you know, that goes into that, and hopefully along their own journey, if that is what you are called to, as we say, a Black proverb, if you like it, I love it. So you know, but you really have to live it. It's for me, I would say it's not passive. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Everything that you have been telling me throughout this call made me think a lot about Jambalaya, not sure how to pronounce it, but the book by Louisa Tish. I am reading it at the moment, and it is exactly what you're telling me about the things that you observe your family doing in the community, and just doing these things a little bit in secret and growing up within this atmosphere that is a little bit different. And you know that there's something different about it, but you can't quite put your finger on it.
Yes. But the beauty, I feel, at least the people that I'm interacting with, there's such like an awakening, you know, and there's a reclaiming that is happening within our communities that I am loving. It has given me so much life to connect with other Africans in the diaspora that is picking up their ancestral practice. And I feel the healing of my spirit when I see that. I feel them just rise because of that. And and I not give me the feels right now. I'm getting the feels. Oh, don't. I'm gonna start preaching and we don't got time for that. I'm sorry. You're not at church right now.
It is true that we are, in a way, kind of making justice to our ancestors by bringing their practices alive again. Absolutely. Definitely.
It's awakening, and I'm here for it. And I'm happy that I'm on your platform to help
girl.
do that. Thank you for showing up just Thank you for showing up in your practice, doing you as you are, because it's helping me as much as it's going to help so many other African diasporic people. So thank you, Aster.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And then there's a little game that I'm going to propose to you. I call it 101. And I'm going to say something that belongs to this magical universe. And you are going to reply to it with one word.
Oh, wait. Okay. Hold, let me get my blanket more secured. Wow.
So, are you ready?
Yes.
An herb.
I'm sorry?
An herb.
Love. That's the first thing that came to my head.
No, like an herb, a plant.
Oh, like,
what would it be?
An herb. I'm already failing at the game. Okay. Oh gosh. Well, the first one I think of is wormwood.
Wormwood. Oh, why?
Why? I recently connected with it, and I've been working with it and continuing to connect with it. It's a process.
Yeah.
Because it's quite different from mugwort. So yeah. So yeah, wormwood.
Okay. A crystal.
Oh my god, I want to say emerald, but I don't think that's a crystal. Okay, no, that's not a crystal. No, that's not a crystal.
It is, I think.
Is it? Okay.
I think so.
Oh, amethyst.
Amethyst. I love it. I love it.
It actually was given an amethyst, and they were like, hey, I was in the mountains and I saw this amethyst and I don't know why I thought of you. I was like,
oh, wow.
Like a friend or anything. And it was like, here you go. And it's like a raw amethyst. And I was like,
wow.
Thank you. Like, are you sure? Like, yeah, I thought of you, so here you go. And that was
that is so expensive. You were just so lucky.
Yeah, so
that person didn't know what they were doing.
They don't even know my practice. They don't know my practice either. So they were just like,
that is so cool. It's just spirit acting.
Yes, absolutely.
A divination system.
Oh gosh. Okay, well, cards. Oh wait, my bones. Oh no, that's not the first word. Oh, my bones. I haven't. My bones. So currently I use cards, but bone collection. But as I grow spiritually, my bones are living, so they also grow as well. So that it's gonna take time for me to find and be guided to all the other little pieces that needed to be in it. But that's a good one. Oh, that's a good one.
So you do bone throwing? Is that it?
Yes, yeah, bone. Yes, bone throwing. And there's other like knickknacks. I mean, bone throwing is just the term for it. I a little pieces of bone when I go out into the forest and whatnot. But there's like shells in it, dice. It's a whole thing that is growing. And so love divination.
Wow, me too. It is, the other day I posted on Threads, I think, there is something so special and unique and awesome to know the real tea behind everything, and people think we are just clueless.
Listen.
It is, I love it. I love divination.
Absolutely.
Something you still want to learn.
Oh,
in one word.
Oh, I was gonna be scary if I say it, but okay. Possession.
Oh yeah.
That is something that I have not yet to achieve. And I understand why. And I understand that it will come in its own time. But yeah, possession. Oh man, okay. If my mom does watch this, I'm gonna have to give her a call and explain all of that.
No, I totally understand. Possession is also part of the religions I grew up seeing, so I understand what you mean. And it is a big responsibility, I would say, and it takes I think it takes a long time to learn. Also, I don't recommend you trying doing that by yourself, okay, alone. Don't do that.
Oh gosh, no, absolutely not. Once again, community. That's why I like that it will come in time, but things like that, even in the church, even in the Black church, there is possession in the Black church. They don't want to call it
possession.
is possession. But even in that sense, it's always with the community. So as of now, I know that's not something that I currently have, but as my life unfolds, I do hope that there is a community where I can open up in that way. That'd be nice.
Yeah, possession is really amazing.
Yes.
Something you wish you had done.
One word. Oh gosh. Oh wow. Okay. Something I wish I would have done. Trusted.
Oh yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I elaborate, or is it like done?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead. Yes.
I feel it's such a fine line of knowing when to do magic, when it's a lesson that you just had to learn. So there's no magic necessary except for you to learn the lesson. And when you just need to surrender and trust that your guides, your ancestors, they have your back. And it's difficult to like, oh, my ancestors have my back. When you feel alone, when you are alone, you know, and it's like they really have my back. Like, okay, I could say that my mom has my back. Yeah, my uncle had whatever, have my back. But to say that I'm alone, oh, my ancestors have my back. There's so much trust. And sometimes we fight it as though like we know better. But there's an understanding that, for me at least, my elevated ancestors, my guides, my protectors, they have a sight that goes further beyond mine. And so when I want to go left and everything keeps falling right, and I'm like, why is it going right? You have no idea who you're heading towards, you know? So there's just trust. So it's like such a fine line between, okay, I'm gonna work magic, or this was a lesson, or I need to trust. Each one has such a fine line, and
trusting is a little bit complicated. How can you trust something you can't see? Let's say something that is not rational, something that is not here in the material realm with us. So yeah, trusting is a little bit difficult. It's a process.
And I have to say, for anyone that is struggling with trust, and a mistake that I made was when I was learning to trust, I needed to talk with someone about it. Be careful who you talk to about it. Not to say that you should be afraid. Some people, they will crush your trust and over rationalize it in a way that it just hurts you for a while, you know?
Yes.
Whereas if you talk to the right person, they won't make you feel crazy. They won't make you feel like, oh, you're being irrational. What do you mean you had a dream and now you feel like, what do you know? So be sure that if you are working on trusting your spirits, trusting your deities, trusting yourself, whoo, boy, learn self. And like, I don't know why I feel this way, but I feel it. And be careful who you talk to. Make sure you speak with someone that is going to uplift and help you trust whatever you're experiencing.
Yes. Instead of doubting yourself or thinking that you're crazy or whatever.
Yes. So that is something, because that's what I did. I went to people and I was like, I want to talk about something, because I would have like experienced something and now I need to talk about it. By the end of that conversation, I felt like I was crazy. I felt like I was being irrational, that maybe my anxiety was coming back and it wasn't a real feeling. Just be careful. Yeah.
And finally, something that you regret doing.
I regret doing.
Yes, girl.
Oh, in one word.
Yeah, the challenge.
In one word, something I regret doing. Oh gosh, one word. I'm trying to find one word to describe this thing that I regret doing. Okay. The one word is evil.
Oh, evil. What do you mean?
Yes. I was like, how do I? Actually, it's nothing so sinister at all. But I regret thinking that I was evil.
I see.
When I finally decided, because once again, Hoodoo is it's so on the hush hush. And finally, I was going to voice it to my mom, my Catholic mom. I felt like so even before that, I felt like these feelings inside of me, because I hadn't deconstructed, this colonization that is so ingrained.
Yes.
I literally thought I was a bad person. Like I was evil and something. And it's like, and I regret that so much because I'm not.
Just stopped you from taking the first step, getting things started. Yeah, I understand.
All because of this thought that oh, nonsense. No. I'm protective. Don't get it twisted. I will protect those I love. I will protect myself. I will protect what's mine. But evil, that's something I can never be. So
yeah. Oh, Quaver, thank you so much for taking the time to join me for this conversation. This was amazing. This was great.
Yes, I love you, and thank you for having me. And honestly, I really enjoyed myself. So thank you.
My pleasure. And by the way, all her links will be in the description below for you to take a look at her channel, her Instagram, and everything that she's up to. As always, thank you so much for watching. And remember, practice makes perfect. So let's get with it. Bye-bye.